Alright guys, thank you for coming to this video. Welcome to my kitchen. Huge thanks to the wife for letting me steal the kitchen. We have a tight space here, so bear with me. Anyway, why am I here? Why are you watching this? We are watching this because we want to talk about Spektrum radios, specifically AVC ones. Now, bear with me real quick. I do have a tendency of speaking quickly. I'll try my best to slow myself down. Try not to sound like Mark Santa Maria. He speaks fast. You guys, I'm sure, have heard of that. Anyway, so I brought out some examples. We got two on the table. We got some on the floor. The ones behind me, they are indeed mine, but we're not messing with those today. All of my trucks have Spektrum receivers to some degree. Don't mind me just dropping stuff. This video will be completely unedited. I don't know anything about editing at all whatsoever, so you're going to see screw ups. You're going to hear me repeat myself. Fair warning. Anyway, let's start with the radios that I have. DX3. This is what I'm sure you guys have seen a million times before. This one came with my Calibrating Success. Came with a fun little red sticker. I kind of wish they do that on all of them. Kind of looks neat. Anyway, but I also have a DX5 Pro. Bought this thing brand new. Had it for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. I don't remember. We're going to be talking about these radios, how to put them in bind mode, how to calibrate your receivers, making sure your servo directions are good, the importance of making sure the direction matches the calibration so that your gyro works well, and not opposite, because if you get it backwards, it'll be impossible to drive. Anyway, so let's start with our first example here. Bring the camera right on over here. We got our Calibrating Success. I have several examples. We're going to be talking about the two AVC receivers, but I have different examples because I use different electronics on various different cars. This has Castle. I got some with Spektrum. I might even bring out the Slash with a Hobby Wing in it, but the principle is more or less the same. Anyway, so let's talk about how this truck comes stock. It comes stock with one of these guys. I have the cover off. We can talk about the Bluetooth module. I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, so AVC, what is AVC? It is a gyro. It is a gyro that influences both channel 1 and channel 2. What that does is if the truck is driving and it senses any oversteer, you hit a corner and the truck does one of these, it'll counter steer for you by itself. Now, when it influences both throttle and steering, what happens is that when you get into an oversteer situation, it counter steers and it cuts power at the same time. With a DX3, all of that functionality is condensed into one knob, this knob here. That one right there. And it's also labeled as such. This knob also works with non-AVC receivers for endpoints. I'll show you that later. But anyway, so the biggest difference with AVC between a DX3 and a 5 Pro is that a 5 Pro, using the screen, you can actually separate channel 1 and channel 2 to your liking. With a DX3, you can't. So you are going to have some degree of power cut with oversteer correction, and that cannot be separated. You cannot adjust your steering or your throttle gain with AVC on a DX3. Keep that in mind. Moving forward, so the receiver that this comes with, Spektrum has two receivers. This is the 6200. Let's see, this other example we'll talk about in a minute has what's called the 6100. Both AVC receivers, both more or less do the same thing. The 6100 has a little bit more features in it. We'll talk about that. Binding them. Okay, cool. You power up your system. You want to utilize your power buttons. I know that with Castles, the power buttons kind of stink. And if you're anything like me, you just cut it and solder them together so that your battery is your on-off switch. In this case, not so much. But anyway, to put it in bind mode and to make sure everything is good, the Spektrum icon in here is a button. This is a button, right? What you do, press and hold. Well, first let me do some preventative safety. So with the calibration process, you are going to be messing with the trigger. So I do want to make sure that we are safe and that nothing scares you. So first things first, take your pinion gear off. Depending on which truck you have, let's just unmesh it. Just get that so that it's not touching the spur gear. Anyway, you either want to do that or take your wheels off or unplug one of the motor wires, whatever's easier for you. Anyway, so we go into our bind mode. So how do we do that? We plug in our speed control, get our battery power figured out, press this button, then turn it on. And this is a very time sensitive process, so you're going to have to follow this exactly in specific order. turn it on. It starts flashing. You may or may not hear noises from your speed control, completely ignore it. So we're flashing. This is now looking for a signal. Fine, cool. You come to your radio. There's a bind button on a DX3, and I'm gonna show you examples of both. Bind button, press and hold that. Hit that button, let go. Come back to the receiver. The flashing stops. It's solid. What does that mean? We're in calibration mode. This cannot be avoided. It's looking for throttle and steering endpoints right now, right this second. So come on over here. And see, we already bypassed it because I didn't do it timely enough. This is why I told you to take off your pinion gear or your wheels, because I was not expecting the motor to go because I thought we were in calibration mode. We're not. We got to do this again. This is very time sensitive, like I said. So you start over, you turn this off, turn everything off, including your radio. So I'll do a fake run right now, we'll pretend, right? So press that button, turn it on, it starts flashing. Turn it on with the bind button, and then you're gonna follow a very specific process. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. That's how you calibrate it. And we gotta do that, otherwise you might have issues down the line. So let's try that. Power on, we're flashing. Bind, power on. Bring it back to the receiver. Flashing, when it goes solid, it wants endpoints. Full throttle. Full reverse, full right, full left. Now something didn't happen. Why are we not working here? And you can understand why, again, this is unedited, so we're learning as we go. This actually brings me to an interesting point because I just saw the servo jitter. Now, I want to make this very clear. These receivers are very, 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 very sensitive to motion. When you do your calibration process, do not touch the truck, ever. It will not boot up, it will not go into calibration mode until it is perfectly still. You are calibrating not only your endpoints on your throttle, but also the position of the receiver itself. If you go and calibrate this and bind it and you're good to go, but for whatever reason you take it out and remount it in a different orientation, your gyro may act a little funny because it's not in that original location. That's important. Moving right along, let's start over. I think I failed the second time around because my hands were on it and I was messing with it. Press the button, turn it on, don't touch it. Bind, power on, come back to the receiver. Once it goes solid, then we go, see how the servo woke up? Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. Now, we're backwards. This is actually kind of good because I can show you what this means. So, we should have throttle. So we do have throttle. Cool. Now, if we look at our AVC knob, we can turn the gain up and I'm going to show you something. So, this is how the gyro works. Now come back to the car. So you see how it's steering itself, right? I'm not touching the radio, I'm just gonna sit this down. It's steering itself, but it's steering itself backwards, right? If you look at the radio, turn the wheel to the right, the truck is actually turning to the left. Let's turn this around. You see this? It's backwards. You have a dial, or a switch on here. You wanna flip it. So now the steering is correct. We're good, right? But we're not. You see how the gyro is still backwards? This is why I was saying the direction, when you switch the direction, you gotta redo the entire process because the gyro is backwards. If you drive it on this, good luck keeping it straight. Ask me how I know. So anyway, to redo this entire process, now that we have reversed it, we wanna reverse it, turn it off, restart the whole process. Check this out. Turn that back off. Press the button, turn it on. Don't touch it, let it be. Bind, power, wait for the servo to wake up. The receiver's gotta boot up. So watch the servo, we're good. Full throttle, full reverse. So that motor turned, we didn't do the process right. You see how this can get very frustrating. This is why a lot of times people opt for the non-AVC receivers, which this one here is an SR215. These ones are really, really easy. We'll get to that. I just got some servos to show you that it works. Anyway, let's redo this process. Turn that off. Bind the button, turn it on. Bind, power on. Wait for everything to wake up. Wait for that servo. Yep, woke up. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. It's a very time sensitive process. I screwed it up, perhaps unintentionally, but mistakes happen, unedited. I've been doing this for a while, so I'm not perfect, right? But I do have a lot of these, so I know how they work. takes a little bit of trial and error. Our steering is now correct. Right? So right is right, left is left, and we got our throttle. Right? Pinion disconnected, obviously. And so now it corrects as it should. See that? It steers by itself. This is the correct direction. When you oversteer to the left, it'll countersteer to the right. When you oversteer to the right, it'll countersteer to the left. This is why we want to redo the process if you get the servo reversed. This is important. And this is usually what they do from the factory if you get this truck brand new with this radio. And you do, and they do. This is the new 6S EXP, this is the version 2. It comes ready to run now, fine, cool. It comes with this receiver, I haven't modified this. It comes with this servo, I haven't modified this. By the way, that's one of the best servos in the game right now. I don't care what anyone says. Moving right along. So that's how that works. Now, endpoints. Can be a little bit tricky with a DX3. Bring that right over here. So we got our trims, right? We can mess with our throttle trim where neutral is. AVC will control how much throttle and steering correction that we have. You see how it's not doing anything right now? Even when you hit the throttle, nothing's happening because the AVC dial is off. Max it. Now we have super, super sensitive correcting steering, right? Fine, cool. Or we can turn it off. Now, what I want to show you is with this turned all the way up, it does influence throttle. Watch, so I'll turn throttle just up and I'm going to hold the trigger in a very specific location. Right? So I'm holding it there. I didn't touch the throttle. You see how it's cutting power by itself? I didn't do that. That's AVC. That's what AVC does. The only time your finger can bypass that is if you over throttle while it's cutting, then you can compensate. But it gets really tricky. I personally only like steering gain instead of throttle gain. I like to control throttle all by myself. Your preferences obviously may vary. I started with Traxxas radios a lot, very similar to how a lot of people do. And TSM, Traxxas gyros only influence steering, not throttle. That's what I got used to. That's how it's gonna be. That's just me though. Anyway, so if you want to change your endpoints on a DX3, anything like that, this is why we have the Bluetooth thing. And I know it's a little bit spendy, but even still, it's cheaper than a DX5 Pro. So make for that what you will. So we got this bound up to our phone. I'll let you guys figure that out. The module actually comes with instructions on how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. So anyway, I got it linked up to the wife's phone here. Thank you again for that. So coming back around, this is what this looks like. If you want to mess with any of the settings in here, like say your endpoints, then you want to come to, let's see, kind of relearning this as we go. So we're gonna stand next to me here. Let's see, dashboard, settings, status. No, settings, maybe? Telemetry? Not quite. This one? No. Channel setup, that's the one. I'm a moron. So we're set to 105 and 107, probably because that's where I had it last. So what does that mean? That means we have 5% more than max travel. Now, what I do want to point out is that when you are binding and calibrating a AVC receiver, if you want more than 100%, because it is possible, 100% in either direction is default. If you want more, you have to start the binding process with these settings maxed out. You cannot bind and calibrate here and then increase it. It won't go beyond the max of what it's already set to after you've done the binding process. But in any case, if we want to reduce our endpoints, show me the camera, it's over here, aim it at the servo here. Thank you again for helping, by the way.
You're welcome.
So if you look real closely, I'm going to turn it all the way to the right. You see how we're having a little bit of binding there on the servo? It wants to move, but the linkage is maxed out and there's physical binding there. It won't do that. That's where endpoints come in handy. I think we're not quite maxed out on the left side, but we are on the right. So we want to reduce right a little bit. That's what we can do here. Without this app and without this module, reducing just the right is impossible, as far as I know. So if you want to reduce it to the right, and I'm going to make it real obvious. Let's bring it way down here. Come back over. And it's not quite doing it yet. I think what I have to do, I think I have to link it again. There we go. Maybe. Learning as we go here. I have more experience in the 5 Pro, but I have messed with this in the past. Oh, I see what link does. That's not, we don't want that. How about if we hit this refresh button? This app stinks, by the way. I don't recommend it. If you want to go this deep into the tuning, I very much recommend getting a 5C or a 5 Pro. That's a reset. That didn't quite do it. So that's my neutral. I think I have to relink it or something. Let's go back into the settings. Bear with me, guys. I know this sucks, but trust me, this will be helpful. Go to Bluetooth. That icon. There we go. Let's reconnect. See what happens. I think we want to send it to the radio. Channel setup. There we go. Now we're talking. Cool. So let's bring right back down. There we go. So because the steering is backwards, we had to flip the switch, remember, to get it backwards. Left means right and right means left. So it's a mess. Anyway, so you see how I have suddenly a lot less steering all the way. Steering all the way to the left. But on the right, we still have max travel. It's not on the left. So I got these backwards. So come back around. Let's get these out of the way. Come on. There we go. There we go. Now I have very little right and all the left. This is where you can mess with your endpoints. Again, with the little Bluetooth piece. It hides under this connector, which I think has gone missing. No, it's right here. So it just hides in a little cover. That way it doesn't fall out. There we go. But anyway, I'm not a huge fan of these for AVC because of how condensed it is into these dials. You saw how much I struggled with it, right? Even though I've been doing this for a while, even sometimes AVC trips me up. It trips everybody up. It's super frustrating. Points to Traxxas for getting their TSM right in terms of simplicity. They did a really good job with that. I particularly don't like how the radios feel on the Traxxas ones, the trigger and the steering, stuff like that, but the electronics are solid. Anyway, so let's start all this over. Say you have a 5 Pro or a 5C. These are more or less the same in terms of binding and all that stuff. So let's turn our stuff off. Turn that off. We're going to turn our radio on. Takes a second. I might need to charge my battery. I have a 2S LiPo in here. Anyway, so let's go to my truck. I have it already programmed in here. I have a bunch of stuff, as you can see. Creating success. So all of the binding is going to happen here in bind frame. These click wheels kind of stink. Anyway, so it's all going to happen here. So it's going to be a very similar process with the 6200. You're going to press the button, turn it on, all that stuff. Now, actually, before we do that, I do want to mention that since I've done this before on this radio, everything is already set up to where I want it. I already have 99 and 98, just a touch less than max travel. My neutral point is a bunch to the left because these servos aren't centered very well, but that's fine. Subtrim is basically your neutral point. They just call it subtrim for some reason. I believe steering is already reversed because we had to reverse it on this, so you know we had to reverse it on this too. Anyway, so come to bind frame. You want 11 milliseconds. You really just want to leave this alone. There's really only one receiver that they use less than 11 seconds. They do have a 5.5. That's okay. Totally unedited. It happens. I drop my phone all the time. I'm not even worried about it. Moving right along. Moving right along. No, we're good. Just let it zoom. It's all good. Anyway, 11 milliseconds. So we're going to leave that ready to bind, right? It says bind. We're not going to hit that button yet. This is essentially the bind button that would be on a DX3. This is right here. Fine, cool. Get that ready. Right. Press the button. Turn it on. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. Let it be settled. All right, we're in bind mode. I was expecting it to turn on because I'm so used to this. Right, be careful. We don't want to touch the truck. Let's put this right there. Anyway, then we go to bind. See, it's reading. It's picking it up. There we go. Come back over here. The servo woke up. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left, and we're happy. We're good. Yep, we're happy. We're good. We got steering. We got our gyro. We're happy. This one was a lot easier. mainly because I already set it up for myself. I've been using this radio on this truck ever since I got it. I held onto this radio mainly as a spare and to use on some non-AVC things like my boats, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, so this is happy and this is good. Now that we're bound, and again, I'm going to show you more examples. One thing that I do want to point out is the boot up time. So what is a really common thing with these receivers, especially the 6100, which is the other version on this guy and a couple others that I have, I'll show you some more examples, is how long does it take to wake up? And again, we can't touch the truck or bump it or anything, right? When we turn it on and when we bind it. It needs to boot up and it needs to be stable, whether it's on a floor or table. You know, don't have it on your lap, right? Don't have it in like a moving car or whatever. We just don't want to touch it or agitate it, because until it is stationary and not moving, completely still, it won't boot up. And I can show you that. So we have our radio on, we have our truck on, turn it on, right? I can mess with it all I want. See how I'm moving it? I'm messing with it. And this Castle ESC is giving me the connection error, the short, long, because the truck hasn't booted up yet, because I'm still messing with it, right? It's not solid, it's not still, it's not stationary. You gotta put it somewhere and leave it. Let it be. It'll wake itself up here in a second. Now it woke up, right? Now we have our throttle, now we have our steering. Sometimes people will be concerned that their truck takes too long to boot up, right? Again, some people might be spoiled with simpler systems over the Traxxas system, because you can turn it on your lap. You know, you move it around on your lap, you're sitting on a couch, a chair, whatever, and it turns on just fine and it's good to go. These ones, not so much. You gotta let them be until they wake up. One of the most common things that I do, I've turned it off now, by the way. One of the most common things that I do, turn the wheels over manually, just like that, then turn it on. Why? When it boots up, it'll center itself. That's how you know it woke up. Fine, cool. Remember, off, on, mess with it, right? It's on your lap. You're gonna drop it on the floor. I can turn it, right? Nothing's happening, right? I can't do nothing, right? Nothing's happening because I keep messing with it. Put it down, let it wake up. Every time. We're good, we're happy. That's one example. This is a truck with Castle system, 6200. Now we're gonna try another car with a Castle system, 6100. It's a little bit different in terms of being patient with it, but it's more or less the same. These 6100s boot up fairly quickly. Excuse me, 6200. Get the numbers mixed up. So let's put this down. Grab this guy. It's a new build, by the way, and I'm really excited about this. Chasing 150 miles an hour with this guy. Got the perfect pass on it, full carbon chassis. Waiting on some battery straps. But anyway, just pretend that this perfect pass isn't here. We'll pretend it's not here. It's super non-invasive, but this has the 6100. It's got the bind button on it, right? Extra ports for some added functionality. Don't worry about that, it's all super simple. But anyway, we got our power button here. Grab some batteries. Let's stick these right here. Plug them in. We'll bind it to our DX3 first, then to our 5 Pro first. You see what I'm getting at? Let's turn this one off. I think I have it set to 4 or 5 minutes that this thing starts vibrating and beeping at me if you leave it on standby for too long. So we're gonna use this. I'm not entirely sure which direction the servo is gonna go on this one because it's a fresh build and I've never bound it to this, but I know it'll work. So let's just put that there. Right, remember we wanna disconnect our pinion gear, especially with something big power like this. There'll be enough noise to wake up the neighbors. Yeah, 2 grub screws on this one. I'll just pull it off and leave it on the table. Anyway, moving right along. So, same process. Press and hold, turn it on. Don't touch the car the entire time. So, press and hold, turn it on. We're flashing. Bind, power, let go. It's gonna go solid. Wait for it. Now, full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. It's backwards, just like the first car, as it turns out. But we still have throttle somewhere. Do we not have throttle? Why are we not waking up? There it goes. Again, you gotta wait for it to boot up these 6100s are very slow to wake up. So this has the perfect path launch control on it. If I go full throttle, it doesn't immediately go full throttle. Watch. That's why I got that. Long story, we can talk about that later. But anyway, so throttle works, steering works, but it's backwards. Watch, right? You see how we experienced this on the previous car? It's backwards. How do you fix that? You flip the switch, but you got to redo the entire process. Remember that. So turn it off. Turn it off. Flip the steering switch. It's right on the top here. ST stands for steering. Flip that. Redo the entire process. So we come back over here, press the button, turn it on, flashing. Cool. Bind, power, let go. Stops flashing, restarts flashing, then it goes solid. Once it goes solid, it wants the endpoints. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. Then wait for it to wake back up again. It takes a second. There it goes. Remember when I was saying don't touch it when it's booting up? Also, don't touch your radio when it's booting up. So once it's booted up, the steering will center itself, everything will be good and happy. So we got right is right, left is left. Throttle with the perfect pass, obviously. And now our gyro is correct again. See that? We're good, we're happy, we go driving. Fine, cool. Now let's try it with the 5 Pro. Same process. Turn this off. And again, with the DX3, you can use the app to adjust endpoints and stuff like that. It works, a little finicky. As you can tell, I'm not very good at it. I don't think anybody is, to be fair. But anyway, so we come back to our 5 Pro. And again, I've been using this forever. So, turn it on, power it on. Other way, it was already on. All right, now we're in bind mode. So turn our radio on, find the model that you want. And just like the last truck, I've been using this radio with this car for a while, so everything is all set up how I want it. So we go hit our button, our clicky wheel button, go to bind frame, 11 milliseconds, just leave that alone. Bind, come back to the car, wait for it to go solid. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. We're good, we're happy. Right is right, left is left. And I have gyro. While we're here, I can point out something, a functionality of the gyro. So, the gyro tends to only work going forward, obviously. And when I say tends to, what I'm trying to say is it sometimes deactivates when you hit the brakes. Sometimes. If I hit the brakes once, it still works. But if you hit it a bunch of times, see how it disabled itself? Now it's not counter steering. After you hit brakes a few times, it doesn't work. And I think that's a design feature. Although I'm not entirely sure why it took so long and how many applications of the brake, right, moving the trigger forward. You would think that would work instantaneously, but not so much. Maybe someone's found a workaround for that. I have no idea. Doesn't matter to me. But it's just something that I noticed. Thought I'd throw it in there. But anyway, when you hit the throttle back, gyro works again. Hit the brakes a few times, straightens out. Throttle once, and the gyro comes right back. So that's this example. This is the 6100. Now, just like the first one, you can't touch the car or the radio after you turn it on, because then it won't boot up. This one takes a little bit longer. So I believe these receivers came out before the 6200s and they made some software changes. I have no idea. I don't work at Horizon. Turn it on, don't touch it. Let it go. When it turns on, it'll throw on a solid orange light and we're good and we're happy. See how long that took before anything happens? Let me try that again. Right, and remember what I was saying. Turn the wheel, that way when the wheel's straighten, you know it's good, ready to drive. Power it on. Takes a second. Couple seconds. There we are. Now we're good, we're happy, we can drive. That's how these receivers work. I'll show you a couple more examples, kind of beat it into your head a little, and then we can kind of put this to bed. And if anybody ever has any struggles with AVC, just share them with them this video, put all these questions to rest. That is until Horizon decides to send us a curveball by updating the software on a new model. Anyway, moving right along, let me try a different example here. So this one's got different electronics on it. It probably won't make a difference in terms of binding, at least not for me, I know it doesn't. Spektrum, right? Got a Traxxas servo on there. I know you can laugh at me all you want in the comments, I don't care. It's a decent servo, I stand by it. Anyway, so this one has the 6200. which is the first receiver that we saw in the Creighton success. Sorry, auto zoom on my phone is being stubborn. But anyway, so it's gonna be a very similar process. So let me just go get a test battery. We'll use this 3S. Shove it in there for now. Plug it in. After this example, I'm actually gonna show you endpoints on throttle. With these AVC receivers, setting your endpoints, calibrating the speed control, not the receiver, because you have to calibrate every AVC receiver. I wanna make that clear. We're calibrating two things here, the receiver and the speed control, which ideally you should only ever do once. But anyway, sometimes you need to redo them for whatever reason, so I'll show you how to do that. Same process, binding, right? Let's turn this off. Get the DX3 again. Press and hold the bind button. Turn it on. The flashing. Bind button, power on, let go. Right, it does the flashing. Now we want full throttle. Full reverse, full right, full left. Now you see how I didn't have very much left here. Hardly any. Or full right here. That's because, again, we're still talking to our app here, so we can get a bunch more. Now, remember when I was telling you if you want to max out your travel, you have to do that before you bind. Because even though I maxed it out, I still don't have very much left here. See that? I'm hardly moving at all. I don't have very much. If you need to increase that, you need to increase it here before you bind, not after. Because you can go down after you bind, but you can't go up. And it'll allow you to go all the way up to 150. And most turbos, I think, can do more than 150 points. See, I don't know if this is actually degrees or points or whatever. I'll just assume it's 150 degrees. I have no idea. But a lot of these turbos can go a lot farther mechanically, internally, than the maximum of this. So you can go all the way up to 150 and the servo can handle it just fine. Whether or not your bell crank linkage can, different story. Depends on your truck. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, so we're good, we're bound. Albeit we don't have a whole lot of travel, and we still have our AVC doing our steering for us, right? Obey my own rules here. I didn't even take my pinion off. What am I doing? We'll just take that off for now. I don't want any surprises. Anyway, so we already know this by now. I beat it into your head by now. What I do want to talk about, though, is calibrating the speed control. Remember how I was saying that you shouldn't be touching the truck or the radio after it's powered on because it won't wake up, it won't boot up until it's sitting still. This is also important when it comes to calibrating your speed control, because if this receiver won't boot up, you can't accept endpoints on the receiver yet. Or on the speed control yet. You see, I'm already getting confused. But anyway, well, I'll explain how this works if you ever need to calibrate the endpoints on your speed control. See, I gotta write that down. So what we wanna do is you turn everything on. So we're already bound, we're already good. With this Spektrum, for example, in order to set your endpoint, you use this button here. And it depends on what speed control. But I'm sure you guys know this button here. Not only does it cycle through some of the programmable parameters if you don't have the programmer card, which I recommend getting, by the way. But this will also allow you to set your endpoint. So what you do is you press and hold. I think it's a set button. Yeah, it says set on it. Press and hold that, turn it on, let it go. Excuse me, I did that wrong. You want to press and hold it and release it when it starts beeping. See, I haven't done this in a while. No edits here. That's kind of the theme that we have here. Right? So we're beeping. We're also awake. To accept neutral, you leave the radio alone, don't touch it. Make sure your throttle trim is centered, right? See a little dot there, make sure that's centered. Press the button. It beeps once. Once. It is accepted neutral. That's where neutral is. Now it wants full throttle. Where is full throttle? You put it, right? Put it on full throttle. Hit the button again, it beeps twice. Now it knows where full throttle is. Now it wants full reverse. Push it all the way forward, hit the button, it beeps 3 times. Then it reboots. The ESC reboots. You want to keep in mind that during calibration of the speed control, whichever speed control it is, you want your receiver to be booted up the entire time. Fine, cool. So it knows where full throttle is, full reverse, and neutral, when obviously you're not touching it. So we're bound and we're good here. So that's how that works. Turn this radio off and we'll come back to our DX5 Pro. Turn the radio back on. As far as using a DX5C or the new DX6C that came out, as well as the rugged, as far as I know, the software is more or less the same. The menus, the accessibility of the menus, how that all works with regard to binding and calibrating is all the same. So whatever I show you here can be carried over to these radios. As far as the previous ones, like the DX6R that came out, that's like a zillion years old and they've long since been discontinued. I have no idea if someone smarter than me can chime in on that. Anyway, so we come back over here to our radio, model select. Again, I have mine selected right there, so the type in there. So we're good on the right model. Bind frame, 11 milliseconds, highlight bind, don't press it yet. Same process that I've told you a million times. Press the button, power it on, right? Then we come over to bind, hit the button, come back over to the receiver, wait for it to go solid. In this order, full throttle, full brake, full right, full left. And now we're good. The endpoints and all that stuff were already programmed into this, but if you ever wanted to change any of those settings, you do travel, which is endpoints, 100% left or right, leave throttle alone. I never ever touch that. Unless, of course, actually, you want to give it to someone who maybe isn't as experienced, a kid, right? And you want to let them drive it, you can actually go into throttle and bring is it the H? Yes, it's the H. So you bring the H side down to like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30, and it gives you like 20% throttle. Super convenient. Anyway, but left and right on your steering travel is your endpoints. I have mine set to 100 either direction, works just fine. Subtrim is your neutral. I keep mine at 0 here, as it turns out 0 and 100 on each direction is perfect for a traction servo. Go figure. Like I said, I actually, side note, I really like these 2250s. I think it's the only real decent servo that Traxxas makes. I will die on that hill. They don't get much better than this on the Traxxas side of things. Even the 2255 is super sloppy. It's powerful, it's fast-ish, it's durable, but it cannot hold center to save its life. So, you know, your mileage may vary. So that's how that works. We've bound it, we've calibrated it, we've calibrated the endpoints on the receiver on this guy. Remember, just got to make sure that your receiver is booted up before you start messing with calibration endpoints on the speed control. Moving on to the next example, and I'm going to do this repetitively until you guys know what you're doing. Our next example, / two-wheel drive. Everybody and their mother has one of these. Now, I mentioned on the Creighton that Castle power switches kind of stink, and they kind of do. So with this particular example, I've actually cut it and soldered it directly. So there is no switch. That means the very instant you plug a battery in, it's on, it's going. So what does that mean with regard to binding? That means it's nice to have another set of hands. So we'll just get this battery out, or the battery cover out, put this in there, just stick it in there. Anyway, so the very instant I plug it on, or plug it in, it's on. See, it's flashing? It's already on, it's already good to go. We're not bound yet because none of the radios are powered on or selected to this model. So we'll turn this off. Just like all the other cars, we're gonna start with our DX3. But we gotta get it into bind mode. Now, in order to get it into bind mode, we have to start with it off. This button does nothing if the ESC is already powered on. Remember that. So, instead of using a switch, this is our switch. So we press and hold the button, and then this is why I wanna have 3 extra hands. So, actually, if you don't mind, I'll have you help me with that. Here, grab this. Use this to press the button here. See that there? Yep, yeah, you're good. Good. Right there. Yep, press and hold that. Plug it in. Now it's flashing, right? So we're good there. We're in bind mode. Just like all the others. Bind, power on, let go. Right, wait for it to go solid. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. Again, we're backwards here. Let me just turn it this way. Right is left, left is right. We don't want that, that's not good. We do still have our gyro, but remember the gyro is going backwards because the steering is backwards. And if you just flip the steering switch, your gyro is still backwards. See that? It's still backwards. Good luck driving on this. So in order to fix this, you got to redo the entire process. turn it off. Right, you want to hit that button for me again? This is what happens when you have crappy power switches on your speed controls. Turn it on. All right, so we're flashing, we're good. Turn off our radio, put it in bind mode again. Bind button, power it on, let go. Flashes, and then it goes solid. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. We're happy, we're good. Throttle, gyro is in its correct direction. The pinion gear is not easily accessible. I have to get the cover off and all that, but it's a two-wheel drive, not very powerful. So, you know, you don't have to really worry about that as long as you have it on a stand, take the wheels off, whatever you gotta do. This would actually be a decent opportunity for me to tell you guys about censored systems. This is just a little bit of a pro tip. So when it comes to a censored system, bring this over here. So you got a little sensor wire that connects the speed control to the motor. Not all systems are censored. And if you had a censored system, you would actually have a plug like this. I know Hobby Wings like to use a different connector type, but the principle is the same. So when you have a censored system, you got to make sure your wires are in the correct place. Now, anybody with a little bit of experience will tell you that if your motor spins backwards, a really easy fix is to swap any one of the 3 motor wires in any configuration. Just swap them, any one of them. With a sensor system, you can't do that. So obviously with this particular setup, it works. You hit forward and reverse, we're good, we're happy. But if I switch any 2 of them with a censored system, it won't like it because the sensor is going to be looking for a specific direction of travel. The motor is going to be supposed to be spinning in one direction, and with that sensor, it's going to be paying attention to the rotation of that motor. If it rotates this way when it wants it to go this way, we're good. If it's going this way, but it wants it to go this way, it won't give you anything, right? So I just swapped them, right? Nothing's happening. Give it throttle, nothing's happening. It's making a weird noise. You don't want that. The only way to fix that, unplug it, right? Then it actually works, and we're good, and we're happy. But again, if you're having the sensor, you want it to be A to A, B to B, C to C. So obviously you can see on the speed control, it says A, B, and C. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bump you there. And on the motor, it says A, B, and C. You want to match those. If it happens to be backwards, then you want to change the programming in the speed control and reverse it electronically inside. But that uses with these castles anyway, you got to use the, the castle link with your computer. That's a different story for a different time. Anyway, so that's another example with these. This one uses Castle Electronics, obviously, but this one did not have the power switch. I wasn't paying attention to which wire was which, so I'll just leave it disconnected for now. Not a big deal. We can move along to our next example, but that's how that works when you have a speed control that doesn't have a functional switch. Castles are notorious for this, but it's a simple 2-wire switch, so if you ever have a faulty switch, you can either replace the harness or just solder it straight like I did. But anyway, that's how most castles are. I actually believe all of them are like that, but I only have the Mambas. Moving right along, we can try our next example, another 2-wheel drive. Only difference with this one is it's got a Spektrum system in it. The wing is kind of in the way, but it's our Bandit here. This one's got the, the 6100? It's got a Spektrum system in it, so we're gonna be dealing with the calibration on that and how that works. This one has the button on it, and so we're good and we're happy. The process is the same, of course, with the 5 Pro. So I'll just kind of skip it because at this point, I think I beat it into your heads enough. So we can move on to this car using the 5 Pro. I think our dog wanted to make an appearance. His name is Thor. He's a good boy. He's 10 years old. And we suspect he's got a little bit of joint pains because he's got a limp right now. So we're trying to make him...
Lay down, buddy.
Relax. Lay down. Hey.
Thor.
Lay down. Hey.
Lay down.
You're okay. Lay down.
Lay down.
Okay, you want to say hi. Hey, lay down. Lay down. Hey, come on. Lay down. Relax. Good boy. Anyway, gotta work around him. Dog life. What are you gonna do? Anyway. So with this system, again, we're gonna come back to the 6100. Let's get our battery. Let's get these out of the way for now. We got a cat too, and she wanted to come say hi. Her name's Tessa, aka Kitty. She's freaking out because she's like, why is the kitchen all rearranged? Sorry, I'm making videos for the channel. The new channel, by the way. Anyway, moving right along. We got our battery here. Plug that in. And so what we want to do is go into your model, right? This one, calling it the Bandit. Bind frame, as usual, 11 milliseconds. Don't hit that button yet. Press the button, right? So we're flashing. It's waiting for the radio. So we go back to the radio, bind. It's gonna start pulling up. You know what? I'm actually kind of glad this is happening because this happens every now and then. For whatever reason, when you put it in bind mode and you put this in bind mode and you do everything correctly, sometimes it doesn't pick up. It's still flashing, it's still wondering what's going on. Eventually, it's gonna say bind failed, just like that. Honestly, I've never been able to replicate it twice on command. You just go back and redo it. For whatever reason, it likes to throw out a fail. Come back to bind. See, look, now it's picking it up. We're good, we're happy. Speed control, or the receiver is gonna turn solid. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. And because I've already programmed all the settings and directions and endpoints in this, everything is already good and happy, right? We're already good here. See how that works? Right is right, left is left. Now, this would actually be a really good opportunity to show you guys the differences in AVC between a DX3 and something that's not a DX3, a 5C, 5 Pro, whatever. So what I was saying previously at the beginning is AVC on a DX3 only works on one dial, the AVC rate, right? That influences, remember, it influences what? Throttle and steering. With AVC on a 5C or 5 Pro, 6C, rugged, etc., you can actually separate individually steering gain and throttle gain, as well as priority. Although, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what priority means. But anyway, so I like to have it as throttle completely off. That way it doesn't cut power, but it does influence steering so that it can help keep me straight. For any of you people who are familiar with me and how I drive, you know that I very frequently drive one-handed. This is how I do it, and I rely on AVC gyros a lot to help keep me straight while I have the radio in one hand and phone in the other. But anyway, that's how that works, and you can adjust them accordingly. The default on these, if you go and create a new, add a vehicle to this, right? The default is 50-50, and it's default turned off. So if you ever wanted to adjust any of these things, you just go into AVC, turn it on, you get all your options, adjust it however you want. Cool. I'll remind you again while we're here, how to calibrate your ESC, right? Fine, cool. In order to calibrate your ESC, the receiver has to wake up, right? And again, we can't wake up the truck until it's stationary, right? Can't move it, can't touch it, can't do nothing. It's not giving me anything, right? Got no throttle, got no steering, until it's stationary, and give it a couple seconds. Wait for it. There it goes. We're awake, we're good, we're happy. Cool. So in order to do your calibration on your ESC, you gotta use the set button, just like last time. Although this one is kind of tucked away in a pain in the butt location, so I'll try my best. So press and hold the set button while you turn it on, and wait for it to start beeping. Just like that. But also, again, we cannot start accepting endpoints until the receiver boots up, right? Wait for it to boot up, gotta let the truck be, leave it alone. Wait for it to light up. There we go, so we're good. Now we can start accepting endpoints. Where is neutral, right? I'm not touching it, hit the button. It beeps once, full throttle, button, beeps twice, full reverse, button, beeps 3 times, then it reboots. Now you have told your speed control where the endpoints are. And again, theoretically, you only ever have to do this once, and sometimes you don't even have to do it at all, because the defaults are usually pretty accurate. But anyway, that's how that works. Disconnect this. Now we're gonna get to the fun one, the Nitro. The reason this is fun is because throttle might need to be reversed. Reversing throttle on an AVC can mess with the failsafe. I'll show you how that works. We got our Gyro here. We don't have to worry about pulling any pinions or anything, because I'm sure you guys know that the wheels aren't going to go anywhere until the motor is fired. We don't need to fire the motor to do any binding. I got my battery back here. The wiring setup on this is actually kind of confusing. 3S LiPo with a BEC inside that steps it down to 7.4. And I also have a telemetry port that tells me what the voltage is. using the voltage ports on the receiver. This one uses the 6100, and it is mounted sideways. Remember, I was telling you guys the orientation of the receiver matters. You have to bind it in its location that you intend to keep it. This is sideways, and I know where the bind button is. Listen, that's where the bind button is. And then our power switch is going to be right here. And I'm fairly certain my battery is actually charged, although I'm not 1000% on that. I also got a convenient little LiPo buzzer here. Unplug it. See if we're charged at all. Well, it's not going off, so that tells me we're at least charged enough to do this. Anyway, disconnect that. Don't need that right now. So, put it in bind mode. Press the button, obviously. Turn it on. We start flashing. You can see that, right? I think you can see that, and it's flashing in there. So we can start with our DX3 on this one. So if you want to use AVC with a Nitro, this is what you want to do, right? Same process for the most part. Turn that on. We're waking up. When the light goes on, full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. Now we're live. Wait for it. Are we not going to boot up here? We're not lighting up. I normally expect the wheels to steer when we do this. Let's try this again. Maybe if I have to do steering normal, throttle normal, make sure my rates are good. This is why using AVC with a Nitro can be a little weird, because you don't have a speed control. It's all in just a standard regular servo in channel 2? 1 turn 2 to burn? Yes, channel 2. See how I thought of that out loud. Anyway, try this again. Hit our button. Turn it on. Flashing, we're good, we're happy. Bind, power, let go. Wait for it to go solid. Once it goes solid, then we do our endpoints. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. Why are we not waking up here? Ooh, are we alive now? Kinda, sorta. I have throttle, but no steering. What's going on here? Learning in real time. Hope I didn't torch my servo for any reason. Albeit it has been a while since I ran this. I have a feeling I might have a problematic servo with my Gyro. Let's try the DX5 Pro, shall we? So anyway, come back to our selection. I got my Gyro here. Powered on, bind. Right, same as always. Bind, frame, bind, binding. Again, we're getting a fail. Today is just a great day to demo AVC, isn't it? So it looks like we're still gonna get a fail. Might wanna try that again. Kitty being weird. Rummaging around the house. Yep, bind failed. Try that again. Hit the button, turn it on. Bind frame, 11 milliseconds bind. There we go, now we're talking. Come back over to the receiver, wait for it to turn solid. Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left. Yeah, something tells me my servo might not be functional here. Yeah, I got throttle, but I got no steering. I shouldn't be able to turn my wheels manually when it's powered on. You know what? Let's do some troubleshooting. Right now, actually. Might as well. So let's turn it off. Give you guys an opportunity to actually see the mess that's inside this car, actually. I use sticky tape. Sticky tape that I use, I'll show you guys that in a minute. So with these 6100s, I actually have a voltage port here, and this is what tells me the voltage of my LiPo. Full 3S voltage in real time. That's how I monitor it, along with the LiPo buzzer. Super helpful. So let's unplug our steering. and try a tester. Do I have testers out? I know this servo works. So let's try this. Black faces out. Kind of just stick that right there. We'll just keep this receiver right there for now. No big deal. Press the button, turn it on. Remember, leave it alone, don't touch it. Even though it is mounted there, we'll just leave it there for now. Come back to our radio. Bind frame, bind. Yep, we are blinking, we are good. Want to go solid. Throttle, throttle, steering, steering. Yep, it looks like my steering servo took a dump because this one works, but this one doesn't. Go figure. Anyway, while we're here, I can actually show you, I believe this one has reversed throttle. Yes, throttle is reversed, which is very odd for something with a gyro, and it doesn't like it. So if you change it, because you can just change direction on channel 1, no big deal, right? Normal, reverse, normal, reverse. But if you change it on this, it's going to give you a confirmation, and it's going to mess with your failsafe if you do. Bind at low throttle to reset failsafe. So basically what this means is that if you reverse throttle for any reason, you got to do the process all over again. And I'm sure you guys don't need to see it because you've seen it a zillion times. You do the reset, the rebind procedure, excuse me. Power it on, right? Full throttle, full reverse, full right, full left, and that's how you do that. The only difference is that it gives you a warning and it affects your failsafe. What is failsafe? Quite simply with these spectrums is that if you get out of radio range for any reason, it just puts every channel to neutral, but throttle, I believe, goes full brake. I believe. Don't quote me on that. I've never actually ran into a situation where I ran out of range. Knock on wood. I don't want that to ever happen, especially with my speedrun car. You know, we don't want to slam this $400 chassis into a fence at 150 miles an hour because I ran out of radio range. Hasn't happened yet, right? Cross my fingers. Sorry, we're making noise in our kitchen. We don't have a studio. This is a very low budget production. And that's actually kind of the point that I wanted to make here is a lot of RC channels are very, produced, right? They're produced, they have editing and stuff like that. Perhaps even people running their channel, doing all the editing and the thumbnails and stuff like that. That's fine, that's cool, but you know, I like the relatable people. I'm just here to work on RC cars, drive RC cars. That's what I know, that's what I like to share my knowledge. I don't know anything about editing, I don't know anything about posting to YouTube, anything about any of that. But I do know RC cars. That's what we do here. It's all editing, it's all very approachable, right? Easily consumable. Might not be the greatest entertainment in the world, but you know, that's what the RC cars are for, entertainment. Do we have another example? Actually, we do. Before I forget, and I was absolutely going to forget, if AVC is too complicated for you, and it is for a lot of people, no judgment, I don't care, you do what you want. Spektrum does have an option, and it's the non-AVC receivers. So we have the 215s. I don't know, can we zoom in on this? Kind of, sort of. 215. So we have a 215, the 315. Sorry, go ahead. We good? Anyway, 215, 315, and 515. As far as I know, I don't think there's a 415, but anyway. These are cheap. I think a 215 right now is what, 30 bucks? Something like that. Let me grab that one servo. You have no idea how excited I am to replace a servo and a Gyro. I'm not looking forward to that. But anyway, so I usually have a little bit of a test battery, although I don't know where it went. So we're going to use this for now, it's just a 2S, and we're going to use this to power our receiver in lieu of speed control or any other type of battery. As far as the speed control is concerned, when it comes to binding, it just wants power and ground. It doesn't want signal for binding, it doesn't need that. Not unless you're setting your endpoints on a speed control, doesn't need it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these two servos, which we know are good. Plug them in. And I'm going to show you how stupid simple these are to use. One servo into steering, one servo into throttle. Pretend that's your speed control. And there is a battery port, and we're going to use this battery to power this receiver to do the binding process. So we're going to use this battery port. If you had an electric car, you wouldn't be using this battery port, but if you had a Nitro, you would be. Or maybe even some boats, because some speed controls on boats don't have BECs. I digress. Anyway, binding on this is the simplest thing in the world. The starting process is the same. This is a button. Remember these icons? That's a button. So what you want to do, when you power it on, you hit your button. Let me get into position here. Hit the button, plug it in, we're live. We'll use a DX3, easiest thing in the world. Find, turn it on, we're live, we're happy. Now, these don't require any sort of calibration. We're already good. We're already good. We're good, we're happy. And these don't have any sort of significant boot times. If you plug it in, when it's already bound, turn it on, look at that. We're live already. Didn't take long at all. These are simple, and that's literally all there is to it. Easiest thing in the world, right? Easiest thing in the world. That's why a lot of times when people struggle with AVC, when it comes to the binding, the endpoints, the calibration, the gyro, the waiting for it to boot up, a real common option is to just get a 215, 315, 515, depending on how many aux channels you have, lights or whatever. Also works with these. Really the only difference between these 215s and the AVC receivers is the gyro. That's it. All the other functionality works. You can adjust your endpoints, your channel speed, reverse them, mess with any other settings that might be on here. Especially some of the newer software versions of these have launch controls, traction, anti-lock brakes. Why these pros are really neat. Yeah, sub trim, reverse, speed, expo rates, idle up for all you Nitro people that might need a higher idle. Traction, whatever that means. Trim setup, assigning all your aux stuff. But if you have a 215, you really only have 2 channels. I don't even think the battery channel works as an aux. But if you got a 315, you know, whatever. These are cheap. What are you gonna do? But anyway, as far as AVC goes, you know, depending on how you are, how you drive, what your preferences are, that may or may not be something that you like, can deal with. I personally don't mind them in terms of dealing with the headaches. It did take a lot of troubleshooting and research and trial and error to figure it out. But the main takeaways, and I'll bring back to examples here, right? We got our Bandit with our 6100 and our two-wheel drive Slash with our 6200. So this one has the 6200, this one has the 6100. Realistically, as far as your typical RC driver goes, the only real difference in usability and day-to-day using and stuff like that is how long it takes for it to boot up. The 61 takes longer, so you have to let it still, don't touch it, leave it be, right? Wait for that orange light to kick on, your steering, power it on with your wheels cocked, and when the wheels center, that's how you know it booted, right? That's how that works. The 6100 does, however, have some of these aux ports, right? And those can be super neat. X-Bus is really neat if you have a capsule speed control, but that's a rabbit hole in itself. And you got a voltage telemetry port, right? But if you got a Spektrum smart speed controller and running a Spektrum battery, you don't really need it. It's kind of redundant. But anyway, that's how that works. DX3, 5 Pro, AVC. It's a pain in the butt, but it's super convenient, you know? And if you don't want to use it, then just get yourself a, where'd it go? A 215, or 315, or 515, whatever you want to do.